All right then. Hello, my name is Robert Kelly. This is a special live presentation of Record All Monsters. Talking about the movie Godzilla vs. Hedorah, or Godzilla vs. the Smog Monster, as it was initially released here in the US. Now, first of all, how many of you just are in general familiar with Godzilla movies? Great. And how many of you are familiar with this specific Godzilla movie? Okay. And how many of you are familiar with my show, Record All Monsters? Okay, that's good. But, so what we do, for those of you who don't know, is we talk kind of in-depth, take a closer look at specific Godzilla movies and giant monster movies in the culture and context of their time. So that's what we're going to do with this one, and in order to do that, we're going to need to talk about the series up to this point. So, Godzilla vs. the Smog Monster, Godzilla vs. Hedorah, was released in Japan in 1971, released less than a year later in the US on a double feature with The Death Master, by also released through AIP, starring Robert Quarry. And it's the 11th film in the Godzilla franchise, which is neatly divided into 5 eras. You have the Showa era, which this film that we're discussing comes from. We have the Heisei era, the Millennium era. We're currently in the Reiwa era, and the American-produced films are a separate thing. So, Godzilla vs. the Smog Monster. It's a completely unique Japanese monster movie, and that's already a very unique genre. So, what I'm going to explain right now is the circumstances that led to such a unique movie over the course of the series. The first Godzilla film was released on November 3rd in 1954, and it was a disturbing meditation on post-war experience for the only nation that has been struck by a nuclear weapon. It was dark and brooding, and it was also a huge hit. It was heavily inspired by The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, Ray Harryhausen produced stop-motion dinosaur movie. It's very good. And King Kong from 1933, which is kind of the foundational text of the giant monster movie genre. A sequel followed in 1955. It did okay. Wasn't a huge hit, though. So Toho, the company that produced the Godzilla movies, decided it was time to try some other monsters out. We got Rodan in 1956. We got Mogera, who debuted in The Mysterians in 1957. Varan the Unbelievable from 1958. Mothra in 1961. And one of my favorites, Maguma from the movie Gorath. It is a giant walrus that lives at the South Pole. So the movies had kind of gone through a tonal shift in the intervening years, and Toho had recently acquired the rights to King Kong. So if they were going to, match their current tone for the series of monster movies and bring in King Kong, they were going to have to do some retooling. And that leads us to 1962's King Kong vs. Godzilla, which changed everything. It is still the highest grossing and most attended Godzilla film in Japan in history. It's a comedy. It's something called a salaryman comedy, where It is Japanese workers having to keep up with the extremely and continually crazy demands of their bosses, which in this case involves two pharmaceutical company executives bringing King Kong to be the mascot for their pharmacy. Next we had 1964's Godzilla vs. The Thing, released in Japan as Mothra vs. Godzilla. It was a much more serious film. It had a darker tone, and audiences today are kind of split on it. In general, it is considered by Godzilla fans and purists to be one of the best Godzilla sequels. A lot of people who aren't as familiar with the movies find this one a little dull, kind of a step backwards. I like it a lot, but I like all of these movies, so you can't trust me on that. Then we got Hedorah the Three-Headed Monster, which was a monster brawl. It brought back Rodan and Mothra from their own movies, kind of the Avengers of giant monster movies, and introduced the big bad of the Godzilla series, Ghidorah, or Ghidorah, as they prefer it to be called now. So in already these 10 years, we see Godzilla has evolved from this sacred beast of the apocalypse to a begrudging, grumpy, but lovable savior and hero. And this would only continue. About the same time, we get the first Godzilla knockoff, Gamera, from the rival studio Daiei. It is about a giant turtle awoken out of the Arctic by a nuclear bomb going off, and Gamera can fly by pulling in his limbs and spinning around and producing fire. He also breathes fire. The Gamera films were directed, with the exception of one, by Noriaki Yuasa, and there are some fun stories about him. One of my favorite is that when he was assigned to make Gamera by the studio, he called Toho, the studio that made the Godzilla movies, and was like, "Hey, so do you have any tips or tricks for me to make a rival movie?" And they hung up on him. The Gamera movies were very popular. They spawned 7 sequels between 1966 and 1980. Diminishing quality, but they're fun, they're wacky, and I recommend you seek them out. They're very widely available on streaming services right now, including free ones like Tubi, and they're fun. So 1967, that was what I call the second kaiju boom. The first one was in 1961, but there were only 4 films, which at the time was unprecedented. This year there were 8 in 1967, released to theaters in Japan and Asia. First was Gamera vs. Gyaos in March, then The X from Outer Space later in March, Gappo the Triphibian Monster in April, Space Monster Wangmagwi, which was from Korea. It's considered a lost film. We're going to come back to that one in just a second. King Kong Escapes from Toho, a pseudo-sequel to King Kong vs. Godzilla, wherein King Kong fights a robot King Kong. Yongari Monster from the Deep from Korea in 1967. This one went straight to TV here in the US, and though it was available in the syndication package starting in 1970 from American International Television, the earliest air date I could find was in 1972. If anyone here or listening knows of an earlier one, I'll be happy to know. And finally, that year, Son of Godzilla came out in December. And so all of these movies had an exploitable, child-friendly element. That was the way the genre was going at the time. But before we get to that, I want to talk about Space Monster Wangmagwi real quick. It's considered a lost film, but only because the rights holders have refused to distribute it outside of Korea. And even then, they only do it for special television and theatrical screenings that are extremely limited. However, boutique DVD and Blu-ray producer SRS Cinema has obtained the rights, and it should be coming out this fall. So we'll finally get to see this movie. And So yes, there's an exploitable kid-friendly element to each of these movies from 1967, including we see the Kenny class of 1967. Kenny is a diminutive, loving term for the children in these movies, coined by the people at Mystery Science Theater 3000. And we have, in Gamera vs. Gauss, Gappa and Yongari. 3 of them have child protagonists. Unfortunately, yes, the one in the middle is in blackface, which was a pretty big problem with these movies up until about 1965. So this is even backwards for then. King Kong Escapes was largely based off of the animated Rankin Bass television show, The King Kong Show, which had a great theme song, which I won't play here because I have already gotten in legal trouble with it. And, of course, there were baby monsters as well to appeal to the kids. We had baby Gappa in Gappa and Manila, or Minya, the son of Godzilla, in Son of Godzilla. So, with, the market absolutely flooded, Toho decides it's time for us to retire Godzilla. And the way they wanted to do that was with a big old monster bash. They were going to have pretty much all the monsters that have been in any of their movies in one film. And they brought back the original Godzilla director, Ishiro Honda, for that. He hadn't directed a Godzilla film in 3 years at that point. And you can see these are only his monster movies, and even that, only the monster movies that tie directly into the Godzilla movies. He was a very prolific director. He was an assistant director later on to Akira Kurosawa on some of his later films. But Honda was, the kind of one of the fathers of Godzilla. We say there are 4 fathers of Godzilla. Ishiro Honda, that director, Tomoyuki Tanaka, who we'll meet in a little while, who was the producer, Akira Ifukube, who did the scores, and Eiji Tsuburaya, who created the special effects. This film, Destroy All Monsters, was so successful that Tanaka at Toho decided, well, maybe we don't need to retire Godzilla. There's still some money in it. So they called back Ishiro Honda, and he put together a script, or a story based on a script by Shinichi Sekizawa, who, again, these are just the Godzilla-related films that he wrote. Very prolific screenwriter. But he put together a story with him that's very heartfelt, about a latchkey kid in industrial Japan whose only escape is these Godzilla movies. And it's based around a lot of stock footage from the series up to this point. Some people do not like this movie. I adore it, and if you want to know why, I wrote and recorded a 90-minute episode of the show about that, so you can go find it. But now it was the 70s, and Toho wanted someone new in the director's chair, especially since Godzilla's Revenge hadn't been that successful. The last time they had switched directors was in 1966. They hired Jun Fukuda, and that is pronounced Fukuda. He was an action director. He had done a couple of very big action franchises for Toho, and they were like, here, have another flagship series. But, again, this was the 70s, so they needed someone new. These are 2 of Fukuda's early Godzilla movies. Godzilla vs. the Sea Monster, where Godzilla fights Ebirah, whose name would literally translate to Shrimpzilla. And we already talked a little bit about Son of Godzilla. So, hot new talent. They turned to Yoshimitsu Banno. Banno had been an assistant director to Akira Kurosawa as well on these 4 films. That is Throne of Blood, The Lower Depths, The Hidden Fortress, and The Bad Sleep Well. And he had been picked for Expo 70, which was the 1970 World's Fair that took place in Osaka, to create a film called The Birth of the Japanese Islands, which was very effects heavy, and it was very successful at the Expo. I couldn't find any material related to Birth of the Japanese Islands, but there was, at Expo 70, a Godzilla vs. Gamera stage show, where actors in costumes acted out a little story as the characters. This is the only official Godzilla and Gamera crossover. You can think of it a little bit as Disney on Ice with giant monsters. We do actually have some photos that survive and a little bit of video, but it's seconds of Gorosaurus walking forward into the light. So that brings us back to Yoshimitsu Banno, who had had such a success with the Birth of the Japanese Islands that they handed him the reins to the new Godzilla movie. Now, Tomoyuki Tanaka, that aforementioned producer, he was sick. He was in the hospital. And so he was unable to supervise the production. And he asked Ishiro Honda once again to take a look at what Banno was doing. And as Honda would look at the dailies, he didn't really have the heart to tell Banno that he didn't think Tanaka would like the movie. So the movie is really and truly Yoshimitsu Banno's and pretty much no one else's. It's a strange film, it's a bizarre film, and we're gonna watch some clips from it now, after I introduce the cast. Akira Yamanouchi as Dr. Toru Yano, the main character. He's a marine biologist. Toshio Kimura as Toshio Yano, his wife. Hiroyuki Kawase as Ken Yano. He is their son, and that actor would actually go on to play the kid in Godzilla vs. Megalon, as well as he's in several episodes of Zone Fighter and Ultraman. Keiko Mari as Miki Fujinomiya. She will be singing the theme song when we get to it. There's some interesting parts with her. And Toshio Shiba as Yukio Keiuchi. The movie is never really clear on what his relationship to the other characters, besides that he is Miki's boyfriend. He and Dr. Yano call each other brother a lot. I think that he may be Dr. Yano's wife's brother, maybe his brother-in-law. But the movie's never clear on it. I also want to introduce our monsters. We have Haruo Nakajima playing Godzilla in this film, and Kenpachiro Satsuma playing Hedorah. This was Nakajima's second to last movie as Godzilla. He did one more, 1972's Godzilla vs. Gigan, before retiring. And when the series was relaunched in 1984, Kenpachiro Satsuma put on the suit and was promoted from bad guy to Godzilla. And so now, without further ado, we'll go into the clips. Our first clip is the theme song, which I mentioned before, which is kind of a psychedelic rock track. And just as a note, I pulled this from the American theatrical version. The rest of the clips are pulled from the English language international version. Just so you could get the lyrics, get the sense of the song. So this is a message movie. This is an environmental movie. The big idea behind it for director and writer Banno was that the oceans are very polluted. Godzilla is a sea monster. This is bound to upset him. So we're not dealing with any kind of subtlety here at all. All of this footage of pollution is actual footage from Tokyo Bay in the year leading up to the film's release. The English lyrics aren't really one-to-one with the Japanese lyrics, but they convey the message. Things are ugly. We need to fix it. This next clip is the little boy Ken and his uncle discussing why he likes Godzilla, who is very real in this world, I'll remind you, and also still a merchandisable character. We see an Ultraman toy back there. I mean, 2 Godzilla toys. And you can see he even has the golden 3-headed dragon of destruction, King Ghidorah, who is also a very merchandisable character. So I'm going to turn the volume up for the clips now. His uncle asked him, "Is Godzilla your favorite?" And he says, "Superman is too." So Godzilla has come so far at this point that he is a superhero to this kid on par with Superman. That's the cultural perception of Godzilla that we have reached at this point. This clip is again more actual footage from Tokyo Bay in 1970. And what happens before this scene, Dr. Yano is a marine biologist, and he lives on the coast, and fishermen bring him strange fish when they find them. One fisherman brings a large black tadpole, which when it's kept out of the water, it dries up into a powder. And when it's put back in the water, it comes back as itself. And so he goes to where the fisherman caught the tadpole to investigate. And the sea life is dead, like Ken said. There's nothing in the oyster. We see these dead crabs just floating. And we saw all that nasty stuff under the water. Brave kid. Just a little fun fact, that is actually the director in the scuba suit. He was an avid scuba diver, and part of the reason he cast the man he did as Dr. Yano was so that he could double for him in the scuba scenes. And of course, Dr. Yano is attacked by Hedorah. There's a lot of imagery in this movie around eyes, you'll notice, as we keep going. So what happens then is Dr. Yano is seriously injured. He has acid burns across his face and much of his body. And he and his son have named the monster Hedorah, which Hedo is Japanese for sludge, and Ra is commonly used as a suffix like Mothra, Ghidorah, Godzilla. That means basically very big and powerful. So the name is more or less Sludgezilla. This movie's full of some little, some strange parts, including animated interludes that help transition the film. Now, again, to emphasize how far Godzilla has come, this is how he's introduced in this film. We have some more lovely footage of pollution in Tokyo Bay. I also want to point out the soundtrack on this one. This is the first Godzilla soundtrack of 2 by a composer named Eiichiro Manabe. It's very jazz influenced. It has a lot of very strange parts, including that horn fanfare that introduced Godzilla.
The atomic bomb, the hydrogen bomb, casting fallout into the sea. Human waste, poison gas, everything unreleased into the sea. And all the lives died. Godzilla completely connected to solve this. He would do something. First wave, second wave, Kenya.
So we're never really sure if this is a vision or a dream or something that's actually happening, since we have Ken's nice little school essay there over it. But again, it's important to emphasize where Godzilla has gotten to. Here he is, something, it's alluded to the atom bomb's fallout, destroying, mutating. And he's a mutation of that, and here he is, for whatever reason, fighting this further pollution. So, this is one of our longer clips today, and I will be talking through it so you don't get bored. This is a nightclub, obviously. And it is very, very late 60s, early 70s. And we get another iteration of the theme song here. That is, if you didn't recognize her, the lady who sang the theme song wearing a body sock. And that is Dr. Yano's brother-in-law. There are some slightly frightening images that will be coming up through the rest. This is the first Godzilla movie since the original to show people dying on screen as victims of the monster violence. I did not use the English language version here so y'all could hear what it sounded like in Japanese. But the English version was dubbed by a woman named Adrienne Russ, who was a desk clerk at American International Pictures, who had a private singing career, and they just kind of pulled her off the desk to record the English version of the theme song. And she went on to have a not bad career. But now we see Hedorah is coming out of the sea and making landfall. And I actually love the contrast of this dark imagery with this upbeat acid rock song.
What did you say? We'll knock it off. It was not real New York.
I wonder what that's like to have authority figures who don't take pollution seriously. So Hedorah is feeding off the smoke from a smokestack, and as she is doing so, she's growing. She's getting bigger. You might notice I've been referring to Hedorah as a she and Godzilla as a he. Now officially Toho does not gender their monsters. They are all it. However, I've just always kind of perceived Hedorah as a feminine monster, and I'll get into the reasons a little later with some other clips. And in the US, we've just always referred to Godzilla as he, for whatever reason. But officially, they're all it. Hear that fanfare again. You're going to get real used to that and that Save the Earth theme. And we're not even watching the full movie. So we get our first monster fight. And it's pretty different from a lot of them. Haruo Nakajima, who played Godzilla, usually choreographed the fights, and he put a lot of thought into it. He was a stuntman, and when he had first played Godzilla, he went and he watched bears and gorillas at the zoo in Tokyo. So he could get an idea for how large, powerful animals moved. And so he always put a lot of thought into how Godzilla would fight a particular opponent. Well, how do you fight a giant sack of sludge? And you can see Godzilla has like visible confusion throughout. There are 3 fights he has in this movie. Just like punches right through her. What? Tries flinging her around. This is where we get one of our first frightening images coming up here. You see chunks are flying off as he's trying to spin her around. We see throughout the film that a lot of, and it's discussed eventually, but at this point not that much. We see that each chunk of Hedorah is sentient, and they all rejoin the big heap. So that's why that part was sliding back out of the window. And this guy's having a bad trip. He must really hate fish. So we're seeing fantasy here, and we're intruded on by reality. There it goes. But it leaves something behind. And it's important to know what it leaves behind. So it leaves a cat behind, and that's not something fun to think about, but we've seen Hedorah eat smoke and pollution, but it didn't eat the cat. It's not here after anything organic. It wants our garbage, and it leaves garbage behind. Godzilla's shepherding it out to sea again.
Stay right here.
She stayed right there. She's become ungovernable. Godzilla's just still not sure how to approach this. What do you do? What would you do with a sludge thing, like sitting on your doorstep? Do you kick it?
Godzilla's not fighting here.
They didn't start fighting. They'll smash everything.
They already have. So that's unpleasant. getting burning acid sludge. Okay, so the atomic breath does something. The special effects director on this film was Teruyushi Nakano, and he was kind of field promoted after the previous guy, Sadamasa Arakawa, who had succeeded Eiji Tsuburaya, one of the fathers of Godzilla, stormed off the set of the 1970 movie Space Amoeba. This is his first film solely as effects director. And Nakano is really good at making things blow up. Again, like the visible confusion reminds me a little bit of a cat my family had. Someone would find a bug or something and be like, what is this? So Godzilla jumps in after trying to find it. And pretty much to no avail. Next minute of the movie is Godzilla turning, breathing some fire on something. Nothing happens. Repeat. Hedorah does attack again during the day while Ken and his uncle and his uncle's girlfriend are at an amusement park. And Ken calls his dad and tells him what's happening, and he says, "Run straight to the school your mother teaches at and bring her home." And Hedorah has already passed over the school. What do you do? And yes, it can fly now. Again, you just punch right through. What do you do? It's making him itch everywhere. Here's another frightening image we get as Ken is running home. We have another animated interlude here. That sign says, "Anti-Hedorah oxygen masks available now." Even the fashionable young ladies are wearing them. So, what happens next? Well, we have another animated interlude. Is that it's basically decided that there's no way anything can be done about Hedorah. So the Japanese government orders basically all power usage to stop, and they work with Dr. Yano to come up with a last-ditch effort plan where they will build some tall electrodes and try to lure Hedorah in between them and use the electricity to dry it out. Hopefully that will destroy it, they say. Meanwhile, the youth of the area have embraced nihilism and decide that they're just going to throw a party on Mount Fuji. Which they take their cars to. And the government's no better, driving around, getting their plan together in their military jeeps. So you can see that Bono was definitely going for some very hard, definitive style. It's very different from movies today, but especially from the Godzilla movies of the 60s.
So why complain about it? So forget it. Enjoy yourself. Let's sing and dance while we can. Come on, blow your mind.
And all of a sudden, there's a full band. What are they amplifying with? And the kids are just coming out of everywhere. I don't know why Dr. Yano, who is helping prepare the electrodes at this point, told his brother-in-law, yeah, you and your hippie girlfriend can take my kid to your nihilist end-of-the-world party at Mount Fuji. These people watching the kids' party, it's never really explained who they are. There are different theories. Are they the ghosts of people Hedorah killed? Are they the ghosts of people Godzilla killed? Are they just displaced, houseless people? It's never explained, but I think it's a very stark and striking image. So, of course, Hedorah comes to the one place anything is happening, on the side of Mount Fuji. And Godzilla follows, and he's still very confused about what to do. When Godzilla dodged that first thought, he thought he had it. Hedorah, you beautiful bastard, I read your book. Godzilla will spend a lot of time flailing on the ground in this final fight. Of course, they're all instantly killed. Except for them. Again, Teruyushi Nakano is great at making things blow up. One thing I really like about the suit is that because Hedorah is wet and damp, they have it sparkle. That's how you know.
Come on, get your torches.
This goes well. Now, the way they achieved that was they had the actor in the suit, and behind the camera, they were down on the ground flinging lit matches up. Like I said, it goes well. Just a few left. Like those semi-popped kernels at the bottom of the popcorn bag. Again, why is he there? It's a lucky shot there. And Godzilla's back. Now, Godzilla's eye has been crusted over in filth, if you hadn't noticed. He punches right in, and look at all that sludge coming out. But he hurt her, and he hurt himself. But that sludge hardens over her eye, and now she's out an eye. And Godzilla's right hand for the rest of the movie will be skeletal. Okay, did that work? Did that do something? So keep your eyes open for this. So her head expands. She's going to shoot her laser. I'm not really sure why it affects Godzilla as much as it does. I think it's just the smoke produced from it is probably very toxic. But anyway, we get to watch Godzilla flail around on the ground a little more. Down he goes. So during this whole time, the movie has been cutting back and forth to the military and Dr. Yano trying to get their Hedorah trap set up. And they cannot get enough power from the city to power the electrodes. It's taken a tumble. And Hedorah just spills out all over him in the hole. Godzilla gets completely covered in sludge. Is this the end of our hero who would star in 4 more movies after this? She laughs about it. Godzilla is drowning in sludge and you're laughing. So they drop these gas bombs to redirect Hedorah into the line of sight of the electrodes. And it goes pretty well. She's satisfied Godzilla's taken care of. And eventually they do get her to the electrodes, but they still don't have power. And they're trying to lure her in between them with the flashing headlights of some army jeeps. That's what that light is. You can see her eye got crusted over from that punch. And yeah, Dr. Yano is still very seriously injured.
Another 5 minutes. We don't have time. 1 minute.
That's how time works. Oh, they're not going to make it. More eye imagery.
Is he ready? We have power. Hurry. We gotta have it now.
Oh, he's back. That starts drying her out. You can see how they took some of the shine off of it, kind of dusty, powdery. And her eyes close. The heroic theme now is kind of worn out, kind of tired. You can see his skeleton hand there a little better. And so yeah, we have Godzilla, Dr. Yano, and Hedorah have all lost an eye over the course of this film. Ever important eye imagery. Yeesh. Okay, so now we can talk about why I thought Hedorah was female all these years. I always thought these were eggs. I always thought they were Hedorah eggs that had baby Hedorahs in them. However, in an interview with the director, Yoshimi Tsubano, he states that they are supposed to be Hedorah's eyes. And the reason they're not red or have pupils or anything is because the decision to have the eyes pulled out was made pretty late in production. They only had 35 days total to make the film. So there just wasn't time to paint the eyeballs. So that's it. Going home. Just let me check something. Damn it. This is one of the greatest scenes in the history of film. Yes. Yeah. Yes. The full heroic march. You may not like it, but this is what ideal kaiju performance looks like. That scene was and is controversial. Because of all of the dark imagery, it was decided to put that scene in there to get kind of a laugh out of the audience. Now, who decided that was how they should get a laugh out of the audience is up to debate. This is also one of the only scenes, I think, that you can really tell that Hedorah is a guy in a suit, as you can see the legs and arms clearly while she's being thrown around. But the director, Yoshimitsu Banno, says he just said to the special effects director, Teruyushi Nakano, come up with something light at this point. The movie's been pretty dark. And Nakano says that Banno came up to him and was like, make Godzilla fly. And they're both dead now, so we'll never really know. Just in time. And he's bringing her back.
Hey, look on my force.
This is cinema. Okay, but they've got power now, right? And Godzilla's got her right back between the electrodes.
Right, turn it on, right? All right, the science, turn.
They can finish this off now. All right. I don't know, man. Gotta do this myself. Again. A nice detail has been the light in the background slowly coming up as it's showing us that Godzilla and Hedorah have been fighting through the whole night and the sun is rising. Fool me once, right? Now Godzilla is just done. Yeah. So, but we know that Hedorah can regenerate from one piece. Leaving no loose ends. So we have some very interesting imagery with Godzilla throughout this film, including his fanfare entrance. If you remember, he was coming out of the sunset. He walked into the night and blew up some garbage. A stern look, don't make me do this again. And we get a very tired version of that theme song. Triumphant but sleepy. We have the interesting imagery of Godzilla coming out of the sunset, like the opposite of a cowboy. And now we have Godzilla, after defeating the monster, walking off into the sunrise. But the problem persists. The lyrics of the song at this point are basically admonishing people about, look, there's still all this stuff. All these problems. Somehow the kid survived? Let's all of us join Ken in saying goodbye to Godzilla. Everybody wave. Goodbye, Godzilla. It's always wild when a Kenny is actually named Ken. I don't think he heard you that time either. So again, if you have any familiarity with Godzilla movies, this is a very different one from any of them, even the other silly ones. Okay. And yet another one. Another Hedorah? Not if we give a hoot and don't pollute. So, Cordy, yeah, you can bring the lights up. If you could leave these ones dim. Yeah, just like that's good. So again, those of you who listen to Record All Monsters know that we have one more segment. It is the game show. We always do a game show of tangentially related trivia. And today's game show is called New Hotness or Old and Busted. And don't worry, I can see in your eyes, Lacey, we will be done by 8. The movie we discussed today took some big swings in an attempt to update the Godzilla series for the 70s. I wasn't around then, but I was around during the 90s when many older intellectual properties were updated in anticipation of the coming millennium. However, there were also a number of iconic 90s franchises and characters native to that decade. This balance between nostalgia and the current day is very well represented in the 1997 summer blockbuster Men in Black, where Will Smith is recruited by Tommy Lee Jones into a secret organization founded in the 1950s to deal with the increased presence of extraterrestrial aliens by making sure their intentions on Earth are peaceful. Once he's on the job, Will Smith refers to himself as the new Hotness, and Tommy Lee Jones as Old and Busted, or something like that. Maybe it was in Men in Black 2, whatever. In today's game, New Hotness or Old and Busted, I will present a beloved 90s film, and your job...
The library is closing in 15 minutes.
Thank you, Van. And your job...
Computers are no longer available.
Okay.
If you have materials to check out or need a library card, please come to help desk now.
Okay, so everyone look under your chair. Like, feel the bottom of the chair. Nothing's there. There should be. Should be under someone's chair. Here we go. All right, come on up here. Everyone, this is Andrea, and we've never met before, is that right?
True. Totally correct.
We've never met before. Andrea, today's game, your job, is when I present a beloved 90s film, your job is to determine if it is 1990s New Hotness
Okay.
or a remake of something old and busted.
Okay.
If you think it's something original to the 90s, say it's New Hotness. If you think it's a remake, say old and busted.
Okay.
Ordinarily, due to a federal court order, we are not permitted to award prizes or inflict penalties on this show. But seeing as this is a live performance, we'll say that ruling doesn't apply to the present situation, and if you win, you will be awarded with this certificate, entitling you to the love and respect of your peers from now until the end of the universe in perpetuity. Andrea, are you ready to play?
Yes.
It doesn't matter, here we go. Question 1. 1999's The Mummy, starring Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz, was a big hit, but was it 90s New Hotness or based on something old and busted? You have 20 seconds.
I think it's old and busted.
You are correct. It is based off the 1932 Karl Freund Universal horror film, The Mummy. It starred Boris Karloff. And I'll use this spot here to make a disclaimer. Just because I'm calling it old and busted doesn't mean I don't like it. I love this movie. I just needed a conceit for the game show. Next question. 1997's Flubber, starring Robin Williams. Is that 90s New Hotness or something old and busted?
I think this one is old and busted. Probably.
You're 2 for 2. 1961 Disney film starring Fred MacMurray, the absent-minded professor. He did not have a weird robot that fell in love with him, but he did have a dog. All right, question 3. You're 2 for 2.
How many questions?
5.
Okay.
5 questions. 1990s Edward Scissorhands. Is this something that was 90s New Hotness, or was it based off something old and busted?
This is one of my favorites, and I don't know for sure. I want to believe that it's New Hotness.
Is that your final answer?
I think so.
Is that your ultimate? Yes, you are correct.
Okay.
It is 90s New Hotness. It is an original idea from Tim Burton's High School Doodles. He just drew this weird guy with scissor hands and eventually wrote a story around him. 1991's Cape Fear, starring Robert De Niro and Nick Nolte. Is that some 1990s New Hotness, or is that based off something old and busted?
I've never heard of this.
You've never heard of it? Please, no help from the audience.
I've never watched it. I've never...
It is terrifying.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's very good, but you have 10 seconds to answer.
Okay. I want to say... my certificate.
Oh, it's directed by Martin Scorsese as well, if that helps.
New Hotness.
Andrea, it's based off something old and busted.
See, I wanted to say that next.
Cape Fear. Cape Fear from 1962, starring Gregory Peck and Robert Mitchum. I like this one a little bit better, but the other one's scarier. I think this one's a better movie, though. Anyway. Last question. 1993's The Sandlot. Is that some 1990s new hotness, or is that based off something old and busted?
This is also a good one. And I don't know for sure. But it has those shoes in it, and I feel like those shoes are pretty modern, so I'm going to say
12
new
seconds.
hotness.
You're going to say new hotness?
Yeah, because of the PF Flyers.
It's 90s new hotness! Although the shoes are period accurate. It was
Is
based...
it not set in the 90s?
No, it's not. Set in the 1960s. It was based on writer-director David Mickey Evans' memories growing up as a nerd who liked baseball in the 60s. Interestingly, I have a picture here of the character Michael Squints Palledorous because the person that character was based off of eventually sued the director, Evans, and 20th Century Fox for defamation. He had the same name that the kid had for real, just spelled slightly different. The case was thrown out by LA civil courts, and then it was thrown out by LA county courts, and then it was thrown out by the LA county court, and then it was thrown out by the California Supreme Court. So,
Poor guy.
Andrea, you won!
I won the certificate!
Make sure you get Courtney to sign her part there.
Yes, I will.
She's the show's producer, so.
All right, can you all take a picture together?
Yeah.
I'm going to frame it. I'm going to hang it.
Congratulations, Andrea. All right, that is the show. The library is closing in 10 minutes, but I will be picking up here, and if you have any questions about the movie, about Godzilla, about where I got this jacket, or if you'd like to buy our crap, we have QR codes that go up to the link for that specific shirt. You can also get those designs on various other things. We also have over there various Godzilla and monster-related library materials. Sadly, we don't have as many as I would like, but take a look and maybe let them know you want some more. And with that, I'll sign off as I do for every show. Remember that monsters are your friends.